Welcome to the Volunteer and Combination Officer section webinar. This month's webinar is on I'm the Fire Chief, Now What Do I Do? We have three outstanding fire chiefs who have served, some in long term, some short term, but Chief PJ Duncan from Tennessee, Chief Tim Sendelbach from Colorado, and Chief Judy Hill from Minnesota will introduce themselves in a little bit because we're excited for them to be here to help give fire chiefs. Maybe it's not the new fire chief, but maybe it's the fire chief who just needs a little stimulant of what it is they need to do in order to make their fire department a little more successful. The VCOS is very busy. We do lots of things. Probably our biggest thing that we do is that we do symposium in the sun in Clearwater Beach, Florida. If you've never been, we encourage you to get registered for that. Early registration probably will be open in the next 60 days. And we do other things there on the slide. I'm not going to read those things to you. You all can read those as well. We do the webinars, and we also do ribbon reports. And we'll talk about one of those reports in just a second. But those reports are available free of charge, whether you are a member or whether you are not. And so we encourage you to go to vcos.org, or you can Google the Yellow Ribbon Report or the Lavender Ribbon Report and get access to those things as well. They're good information for you to help you manage your fire department. I know we continue to beat you up all the time about cancer, but the number one killer of firefighters is cancer. We encourage you to scan that QR code and get registered in the National Firefighter Registry for cancer. We need data. We need to be able to prove that this job is more dangerous than other people expect that it is. Here's the report that I've told you about. Again, it's available free of charge. You're the fire chief. What guidance for new and interim fire chiefs? This is a report that Chief Al Yancey put together along with some other people. But again, you can Google that and get that report as well. Workforce Solutions is a part of the International Association of Fire Chiefs education program. We encourage you to go look at Workforce Solutions. There's a Chief Officer 101 program that again is available free of charge to you. It is a multi-session virtual training program. Workforce Solutions also does in-person training programs, but you need to get registered. You need to get this on your calendar and look at some of the opportunities. Again, in some cases, we actually pay for you to drive there. We pay for your hotel, and we pay for your education. So it is something that I would encourage all of you to look for in what Workforce Solutions may offer for you to help improve your ability as a fire chief. Well, congratulations on you're now a fire chief. And today we have these, as I mentioned earlier, we have three fire chiefs here to talk to you and discuss some of the questions that we have made up and share with you their experiences, and they're good and bad. And our first person is Chief PJ Duncan. PJ?
Yeah, thank you, John. My name is PJ Duncan. Like Chief Buckman said, I am the fire chief of the Pleasant View Volunteer Fire Department. I've been at the fire department here for, going on 40 years now. I've been the fire chief for the last 12. But our fire department is just on the northwest side of Nashville, Tennessee. We border Nashville on the northwest side, right on the interstate. We've got 8 stations. We only have 4 career people, and the rest, we've got about 97, somewhere around that number of volunteers. So just about everything we do, other than the admin side, is done with volunteers and part-time workers. So we run, like I said, we have 8 stations. We run about 3,000 runs a year, close to that.
And Pleasant View was one of the early adopters of residential sprinkler ordinances, weren't you?
We are, yeah. We've had mandatory residential sprinklers in 0 square foot, anything you build, even single-family dwellings, since 2000. And the entire county's that way now. So we've got all of our municipalities and county put sprinklers in.
Okay. All right. Chief Sendelbach, introduce yourself.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate the opportunity. Tim Sendelbach. I'm the fire chief with Loveland Fire Rescue Authority. which is about 40 miles north of Denver, Colorado. Combination department, predominantly career, 10-station department, have 14 volunteers. Everybody else is career, whether it be line staff or support staff. Unique organization in the fact that the diversity of what we cover represents anywhere from urban to a mountainous region with a pretty significant wildfire interface. So.
And Chief Sendelbach is the former editor of Firehouse Magazine and Fire Rescue Magazine. I was going through some old stuff the other day and went, oh, look, Tim was the editor of that as well. Very talented writer. So welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank
Chief
you.
Judy Thill, introduce yourself, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Judy Thill. I'm the fire chief for the city of Inver Grove Heights in Inver Grove Heights, Minnesota. We're a second-tier suburb of St. Paul, so we're in the Twin Cities metro area. I was hired as the first full-time chief back in 2007, so I've been doing this for 17 years. When I came on board, we had about 65 paid on-call volunteers. We have now grown to well, we still have 60 to 65 people, but we've grown to, by July of this year, we will have 22 full-time, and that includes shift personnel as well as administrative, which are also responders, and then also about 40 to 45 paid on-call volunteers. We have 3 fire stations here. We're about 33 square miles, and we're a mix of more suburban and rural residential, as well as a lot of open land in the area. Plus, we border 7 miles of the Mississippi River.
And Judy brings along that, as she mentioned, paid on call, which is a different kind of staffing model, and that may come up in some of our discussions today. So let me go to I'll go to Judy on when you, as the fire chief, you have dreams, you have projects. What's one of the dreams and projects that you have that you want to help improve the department?
Well, I'm not so much thinking now. I'm thinking back when I first started. How about that? Coming in as the first full-time fire chief, I really didn't have a dream other than to keep a good reputation for the fire department, keep everybody safe, and so on. But when I first got here, I did a lot of observing. I did ride-alongs. I didn't always go and take over the fire scene and so on. I rode the back of the vehicle, the back of the truck. I participated in a lot of the calls and so on. And I just researched a lot. I really started watching what was going on and trying to see, get to know people. That's a good way if you're riding in the back of the truck. Get to know people on the way back from the call and so on. But just get to understand how the department was working, because I came from the outside, and it was a little bit different than being promoted up through the ranks. But once I made those observations and so on, one of the first things I remember focusing on was training. We had an okay training program when I first started, but the training outlines were not very robust. And a lot of times the training outlines would get to the people who were going to present the topics like the day before. So they really didn't have a chance to prepare anything. And obviously, training is extremely important. What I ended up doing is it took me about 6 months to a year to get it all set up and so on. I reorganized the department and created what I thought was the best way to handle things, but also so we could create more opportunities for people to feel like they were involved. And training was one of those areas. Instead of just having one training officer who was obviously a volunteer, paid on call volunteer, that was a lot of work. And so we set it up to have assistant training officers, and we split them out between prevention, rescue, EMS, suppression, professional development, and apparatus. And so that did a few things. It spread the work out, obviously, over a large number of people rather than having one person kind of being the jack of all trades and trying to try to learn everything. But it also gave people a chance to get involved. and give them a sense of belonging in the department. And obviously, as we all know, that is extremely important. And training itself is important because people don't want to have their time wasted. When they're volunteers, they're paid on call. They don't want to have their time wasted. So you need to make the training time when they come in very good for them, so that they actually learn, and it's not just something that somebody threw together at the last minute. It also helped when somebody resigned, retired, or just found it to be too much, where when one person left, we only had to fill that one spot, such as rescue or EMS or something like that. We didn't have to find one training officer to do the entire thing. And it was also kind of a semi-promotion. We called them assistant training officers. And so it gave them a chance to have some pride and gave them a title. So training was the really biggest thing that I concentrated on when I first started.
Awesome. And we may come back to that a little bit here. Tim, what did you have as a new fire chief? What was one of your concerns?
Yeah, thanks, John. What I didn't share in my introduction, I've been the fire chief here for about 4 years. Came from the outside, obviously, and I'm incredibly fortunate. I tell everybody with every presentation, I pinch myself every day. I'm blessed with a great organization with great people. And I think the three things that I focused on coming into the organization, and I wasn't coming into an organization to fix an organization. It was to build what I say is the foundation was solid. It was to put the first floor, second floor, and the roof on the organization. So my three priorities, very much like Judy, was to focus on the people, make sure that we had a competent workforce that was healthy and prepared to do the job. So their health and wellness were my top priority and continue to be my top priority. To that end, we've got 1582 compliant physicals across the board, cancer screenings, behavioral health assessments, sleep studies that we do annually, and we're currently building a health and wellness clinic specifically for our firefighters. So they don't have to go anywhere else, but basically to our training center, which will have that new building to take care of their health and wellness needs. The second part of it was financial security. We are an authority, so we're a unique model. I've got 4 boards that I basically report out to. One board, obviously, I answer to, but it is an incredibly unique governance model, and it's complex. Every meeting I have basically is ×4. So I meet with my bosses, and then I report out to 3 other boards, which eats up your day pretty quick. But that financial security, because we're an authority, we have contributions from 2 different entities, and you really got to navigate that. And the question is that sustainable in the future? Because inevitably somebody is feeling shorted in the process or contributing too much to the process. So we're working on that. That's a long-term effort. My goal will be to transition to a fire district, so I'm not beholden to one organization, but rather independent. And then the third, this is what I promised the mayor and city management, is LFRA was not going to be a hindrance to development. I want to be aggressive in our prevention efforts and our code enforcement, but we won't be a hindrance to development. I think that's very important, that we work with developers, we find that middle ground, but we don't compromise on the black and white. Where it's black and white, we stick to that. Where there's gray, that's where we'll have the flexibility. I think we've been incredibly successful with that.
Wow, some great stuff there, Tim. Thank you. PJ, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I can. And going back to my first days a few years ago, we're not so unique. I, like Judy, was the first fire chief, paid fire chief here, and kind of like Tim, we have 4 different governments that we report to. Our fire station sits right on the county line, and so we report to 2 different cities and 2 different or 2 different counties as well. But the 2 things that I remember focusing on when I first came in, right or wrong, was increasing our volunteer staff. When I first took over as the fire chief, we were in that element where we were losing some of our longtime volunteers. The young volunteers weren't staying as long as they used to be. Where I am a little bit different than Judy and Tim is, I did come from the inside. So I've been at the same organization my entire career. But getting the volunteers and increasing funding. We hadn't increased funding in our organization significantly over several years. So that was one of my big goals, was to get with the 4 different governments, educate them on what we did and what our volunteers were saving them, versus some of our cities were new and they were hiring in new police departments at the time. So they were understanding of the cost to start a new department. But the volunteer or the fire service stayed volunteers. So that was my big thing, is to educate them on the monies that we were saving them, and hopefully get our funding comparable to the police departments.
Wow, good stuff. So as I warned these guys, when we have the list of questions, we may not follow them, but I want to go back to Tim for a minute, because Tim, you brought up something about health and wellness, taking care of your firefighters. I don't care whether you're a small department, large department, that is so important. But you talked about building a health and wellness clinic. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, John, I appreciate you highlighting that. It's something I'm incredibly proud of. So what we did is we were doing medical physicals within the organization prior to me being here. They weren't 1582 compliant. So basically what we did is we secured an AFG grant, a regional grant. So we offered it to 5 of our immediate departments that surround us. So we got that grant. So we contracted with a company called Frontline Mobile Health. They are now basing their headquarters in Colorado out of our training center, which will be obviously the health and wellness clinic, but they'll be the contractor working out of that. The way we did it was literally I was pursuing grants, but I got it through a federal appropriation. And I think we'll probably get into this topic. People say they don't like being a politician. Well, if you're going to be a fire chief, you damn well better learn how to be a fire chief and a politician, and take pride in that. And the reason I say that so strongly is because I took Congressman Neguse around our district and talked about this, and he's the one that helped me secure that. So it was literally through the elected officials that we secured that. And ultimately, we're not only going to serve ourselves, but more importantly, our entire region through that health and wellness clinic. And I think that is a critical message that I want to share, is don't try to do any of this stuff alone. Reach out to your partners and your surrounding agencies to make sure you're a group participant. It goes a lot further to your success.
And I would echo some of what you said there. Whether you're even a small all-volunteer staff department, doing NFPA 1582 physicals is a critical component of keeping your people healthy. So, even though you may not be able to afford a health and wellness clinic, you can afford to do some of these other things. I should say afford. You have to do these other things.
Right.
So, Judy or PJ, anything to add on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in real quick, John. And that's become really important to me too. One of the things that I do is I do get to travel a lot, to whether it's VCOS or Firehouse or FDIC, all of those kind of things. And that was one of the things that stood out, was with the ribbon reports and those kind of things. That says, hey, it is important. It doesn't matter if you're Metro Nashville or Pleasant View, Tennessee, that it is important. So that's one of the things that I really took on probably 3 or 4 years into my career. I really probably went overboard, and I can blame a little bit of this on Tim at some of his speeches on the stage at FDIC when we were talking about how important behavioral health and making sure your people are in the right gear, and why do our firefighters still have the leather cow sitting on their head, and some of those kind of things. So when I came back and from those things, and I implemented a lot with the 16 initiatives. We took out tobacco, we took out smoking, we implemented the 1582, we changed our helmets, and I learned a lot of things that you can make a lot of improvements, but there's a couple of things you don't mess with. And one of the hard lessons was the firefighter helmet. And we've since then went back from the Euro style helmet to a lighter version of the traditional. We're not wearing leather, but we have done that. So those are some lessons learned. It is a little tougher on the volunteer side to do the 1582s. Even in the rural communities, it's hard to find the places to do the 1582s. But we also, like Tim, we secured a federal grant for the 1582. So the last for, I guess, a little over 4 years now, we've been doing the 1582s on the federal grant. So.
All right, thank you. Judy, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just add a few things. Fortunately, when I walked in the door, we were already doing physicals, so upgrading to a 1582 wasn't a huge deal. But we've added some things along the way too. Just this past year, we added a mental health company where we're spending money, so they come in, they get to know the firefighters. They've done some training. We require the firefighters to go to one-on-one session with a therapist every year. The therapist says some people, first time especially, they come in, they sit there and they stare at each other for an hour. But after a while, they get comfortable with each other. So, and then they come out for critical incidents. We just had one a couple weeks ago where the therapist came out. So really concentrating this year on the mental health, mental wellness, and behavioral health. But then also too, one of the things I've been fortunate to do in the past 17 years is build a brand new fire station. And we made sure to include a special area where they drop their gear, do the washer, the extractor, and so on. Then they go directly to a shower, a steam shower, and we have jumpsuits for everybody. They don't wear their uniforms home. They leave them here, and we wash them for them. The crew on shift will wash the uniforms for them, so they aren't taking anything home. So we've put a pretty strong concentration on health and wellness in general, probably in the past 5-10 years.
Great. All right. So again, I'm sticking on some of the things you guys talked about, or maybe in PJ's case, I'm the one that brought it up. PJ, can you talk about the value of the residential sprinkler ordinance that you have had, how it's helped your community?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, we did that going on 25 years ago now. And we did that when our city was small. Our city was not incorporated until 1996. So we were still working from a fairly clean slate. The housing stock hadn't really hit yet. So we knew as a volunteer fire department that it was coming just right outside of Nashville. We were actually situated between Nashville being the largest city in the state and Clarksville being the fourth largest city. We are directly in between the two. So we knew growth was coming. It was already on the slate. We knew we were not going to be able to grow as fast to handle that growth, but residential sprinklers were one of the things that we said, hey, if we can do this, this is going to be able to help us run with sometimes limited staffing and limited volunteers and those kind of things. So it was tough. That was before sprinklers were in the code. We adopted that with a resolution, I guess, the city ordinance. And there was a lot of pushback at the time, but we did take a lot of time to educate our builders and developers. We held meetings at the local elementary schools. Miss Vicki Pritchett, she was on our board of directors back at that time. She would feed them. She would cook the suppers, and we would feed them and educate them on the residential sprinklers. So it wasn't as bad as a lot of people have lived through. And today it's just a part of life. Anything that's built is protected. So.
Wow.
Thank you. Well, for the audience, the topics that PJ and Tim talked about are big programs. It may not be something you're going to do in the first year or two, but my point is, let's put it on your radar and start thinking about it. Anybody have anything else to add to the residential sprinkler issue?
Go ahead, Judy. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, in Minnesota, they passed sprinkler requirement for any home over 4,500 square feet. I can't remember how long ago. We thought that was a big win, but then a few years later, the builders lobbyists came in and actually got it reversed. And when it happens at the state like that, unfortunately, that trickles down to the local level, and the local electeds aren't all that interested. We can't even get some of the builders to offer sprinklers. They'll offer lawn sprinklers, but they won't offer residential fire sprinklers.
Yeah. Tim.
John, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a big ticket item. It's an item that takes a lot of time. I look at it. I mean, I'm dealing with affordable housing issues like most. I'm dealing with wildland urban interface in the WUI code. So those two things kind of make it very difficult. So what I would advocate is play the game. Start setting the groundwork to get to residential sprinklers. I'm not pushing for residential sprinklers because right now I know it's an uphill battle, but I'm setting the stage to ultimately get there. I have to be considerate of affordable housing. How are we going to allow developers to build things safely and affordable? How do they comply with the WUI interface code that we imposed, because we got a significant risk here. But what's interesting is January 1st, our new city manager came from Scottsdale, Arizona, which is fully sprinklered as well. So we're playing that game. We're laying the groundwork, and ultimately, I think we will start to transition there. But if I came outright as a new fire chief and said, "Hey, I demand residential sprinklers," I'm going to lose. So you got to pick your battles to ultimately win the bigger game.
Thank you. Good, excellent point about picking your battles.
But John, can I jump in real quick to piggyback on what Chief Sendelbach just said? Even if you can't start at the residential sprinkler level, what he said earlier, you got to you got to be involved in the code and standard side. And it doesn't matter what level, even if you can just get a seat at the table. Most city councils or county commissions or whatever you work for, most of those will let you have a seat at the table, and you can help with, whether it be setbacks or whether it be separations or, stairways or whatever that is. Because there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike with single stairways and all kinds of stuff that's going on in the code. The home builders and some of those people are getting smart and not necessarily trying to change codes. They're changing it at the legislative level, which bypasses all of us. So I would say no matter how big you are or how small you are, if you can just get a seat at that table and share your opinion, then that will help us all out for sure.
All right, thank you. Well, Judy, going back into your opening comments, you said when you first got hired, you got out on the street. How valuable? We have new fire chiefs on here, as well as I'm sure senior fire chiefs. But how important is that to get out on the street?
It's extremely important. What's the old saying? Managed by walking around. And that's what you have to do, especially as a new chief. Unfortunately, I've drifted away from it. I keep trying to tell myself I got to get better at it, go back. But even as an experienced chief, it's important. But like I said, ride the back of the truck, watch people, participate, be part of the team. When you're running the scene, when you're at mutual aid and you're just assisting the neighboring chief for some reason, watch what everybody's doing. But get out there during training, when they're having training, watch how much people participate. That was one of the things that we had some issues with initially, is we have a requirement that they have to make so many trainings a month and so many calls a month. But it's one thing to show up and stand there. It's another thing to participate. So you really need to get out there and make sure your people are participating in the training that they have. So instead of just going through the motions, obviously the outcomes are completely different. I think we've been really good about building up our training program over the years as a result of really concentrating on it. But it takes time, but it also really, the payback is extremely good once you get the training program up and going.
Great. Tim or PJ, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would. I kind of look at it a little bit differently. I get out as much as I can, but I think the biggest thing is to be present. I asked our firefighters, I go out there and I say, hey, I apologize, I'm not getting out as much. And you know what was interesting is their response back to me was, Chief, you don't need to come out here to see us. We appreciate it every time that you come out, but we know that you're out there doing it for us. You're at different meetings, you're engaging with different folks, you're doing your side of the business and we're doing ours. So don't get hung up on the fact that you're not visiting every fire station. If you are present in different forms, they see you in different meetings, they see you representing the organization, I think that goes a long way. Now, I don't want to dismiss the opportunity to get out there and engage, but as you're a bigger organization, or maybe geographically you're spread out, you may not have that opportunity. So don't get so spun up on being at every station. just make sure your folks know that you're engaged and you're representing them on every front that you possibly can.
And in your case, so you are 10 fire stations, I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
It's also important that your battalion chiefs understand who you are and what you're about, and they share that with your members. Agree with that?
Yeah, I think they have to carry your message in your absence. They don't replace you, but they got to get the message that you're trying to disseminate to the organization. Maybe you haven't done something like this or a monthly video. They're helping you get your message out.
Okay.
And
PJ,
John,
go ahead, Judy.
I was going to say, as I said at the beginning, I think it's really important to get out and about. But yes, as you get bigger, you are going to get spread thinner and thinner, and you do need to use I don't have battalion chiefs, so I have deputy chief and assistant chiefs to get out there and carry that message. But yeah, also make sure you communicate that you are doing those things. They might not see you at city council meeting, but go back and let them know what are the things that you discussed at the council meeting, what were the results, and so on, so they understand that you do have other jobs besides coming out to meeting and greeting them.
Right. PJ?
Yeah, and I would say, and I guess piggyback a little bit more off of what Tim was saying, you got to build that team. I used to beat myself up because I wasn't out enough, but if you've got the team and your officers are out there pounding the streets with your message, then that means a lot. And I would tell any fire chief, whether you're coming in the door or you've been here, or you're looking to promote or whatever, you've got to build the team that's on your side. I mean, you really can't have it's just like putting everybody in a canoe. If you've got one person paddling the other way, it just doesn't work. And I learned that the hard way in my career early on. In my career, or in our department, I guess we historically promoted on seniority, or you've been here for so long, or you do so much, or we really didn't take into consideration what kind of person you were, or who you believed in, or what you believed in, and your morals, your ethics, and those kind of things. So I take that a lot more serious now, because I want to make sure that the players that I put on my team are all headed in the same direction. I don't want them, I don't want them to have to think like I do, but we got to have a goal. We got to know where we're going together. So I would say that's super important.
Well, it's interesting because I've been around a while, just like some of you all have been. And, when I talk to people who want to be fire chiefs, or maybe they're a new fire chief, I tell them this: find 3 people who will take a bullet for you. No matter what your position is, they will be out there communicating your position and not their position. And I think that's sort of what you all just said. It is about that team approach. Tim can't be by himself in a 10-person or 10-station fire department. And neither can PJ or Judy. So you see, you guys give me the questions or the next part of the discussion. But PJ, you just talked about paddling the other way. And one of my original questions that we discussed about is, how do you deal with the PITA people, the pain in the, you all add the last word to that, is how do you deal with people who want to paddle a different way than you do as the fire chief?
Yeah, and you got me on the PETA, because I tried to Google that, and it doesn't exist. So I'm like, I don't know what that is. But now that you said that, I think we all have those, right? And you have to deal with them. It's personality. That was one of the things that I learned as the fire chief. I knew a lot of the stuff that I had to do coming into the job, but counselor or dealing with the personalities or people, that was probably the hardest for me to learn. And when you have those people that are paddling in the wrong direction, as long as they're salvageable, I think you can have those one-on-one conversations and let them know. It's really about educating. I found out too that if you can give them some responsibility, put them in charge of either people or programs or projects that you want done, sometimes that helps out. If you've got somebody, and I'm just, again, learned this one the hard way, if you've got somebody that's truly paddling in the wrong direction and it's not salvageable, at some point you just got to cut ties. I mean, you can't have them bringing one person or 2 people bringing down the entire organization, for sure.
And as a new fire chief, Judy, thinking about that, how do you identify those people that might be paddling a different way? Any ideas?
When I first started, it was pretty obvious which ones were paddling in the wrong direction and which ones were paddling in the right direction. But at that time, when I first started, we had some of those that were a pain, but we called them pot stirrers, and they're the ones that just wanted to cause a little ruckus here or there or get people whipped up and so on. And I had one specifically that he had a group or a clique or whatever you want to call it that kind of followed him, and he would get things stirred up with them, and then they'd go out and get things stirred up with the rest of the firefighters. So one day I brought him in and we talked about just how damaging it was to the fire department and to the firefighters and his brothers and sisters that he claimed that he loved and so on. And we had a really good talk. And at the end, I literally said, I need you to knock it off. And just in those plain words. And to my surprise, he actually did, and became an advocate afterwards. But I know it's not that easy. We all have them. And like PJ said, if you can't turn them around, maybe you have to cut ties with them. But at least work with them and try those things that he mentioned about giving them things to do. And like I said, about talking to them and just trying to get them to see your vision and the direction of the department you want to take.
Tim, anything to add?
Yeah, Judy, I think you hit it at 98% of what we do is people issues. And I think those people who are perceived to be the pain in the butt for you, the first thing I would advocate is listen to them. Listen to them. As a guy well known for throwing grenades in the room and creating chaos, listen to them first and foremost. Understand their concerns. And then I guess my default is I was a better fire chief on that side of the desk than I am on this side of the desk. Because I knew my perspective on that side. On this side, I got all perspectives, right? So there's two sides to every story, and typically that person who is that pain in the butt only knows one side of the story. So I think when you listen to them and you can convey that other side, they typically come around. But ultimately, there are those people who probably have a different vision than you, and they got to set their course in a different direction outside the organization.
Great. Anything else? Anybody else want to add to that? Well, Tim, I've been waiting to do this since you mentioned about you throwing grenades. I have never forgot how you challenged the group at Firehouse Expo to get you a public education picture to put on the cover of Firehouse magazine, and nobody ever provided you one of those. How important is public education in our job?
John, I gave you my three priorities, and that was my acceptance speech upon appointment as those three priorities: take care of your people, financial stability, and don't be a hindrance to development. But that other aspect was to tell the LFRA story. To me, LFRA is one of the most unique organizations out there. We apply modern research to the fire ground in a much different format than any other department I've ever experienced. And what I told our folks is we got to tell our story. So as typically occurs when there was a financial downfall, the organization kind of restructured and we lost our public education and outreach individual. I have since replaced that person. And to me, it is one of the most critical positions to really leverage the organization for the future. Telling politicians, or I shouldn't say politicians, elected officials and the general public, telling the story of the LFRA, what we do, what we don't do, and educating each generation coming through the educational system. I think it's absolutely critical, especially given all the forms and mediums that we have to communicate now.
Great. PJ, anything to add about public education?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's huge. I talked about, we only have 4 career people. One of our career spots is a community risk reduction coordinator. So that's it is huge and important. And we go to our schools and do all of those kind of things, but it's a year-long thing here, whether it's birthday parties or, like Tim said, just doing community events, but it also gets into the codes and standards and those kind of things. But not only are we educating today, but we have so many platforms, so many opportunities today to do that. And not only does it help us with our public outlook, I guess, we still operate a lot on donations, so it helps on that aspect too. But it also helps with getting the kids interested in the fire service. There's not many kids that don't want to be a firefighter at some point in their life. So if we can capture that, there's just a lot that goes into that. And I don't know that I can say that's the most important, but that was one of the things that I said I was going to do as fire chief. Our budget was broken pretty much down in administration, training, and community outreach at that time, or public education at that time, I guess it was called. And I wanted to equal or I guess put enough money or put the same amount of money in all. And that was one of my goals. I didn't get it all lined out like I wanted to, but we put a lot more money into training and community risk reduction than we ever had. So
great. Anything to add? Anybody else?
I'll just add real quick, like I talked about before about participating when you can. I've always said that prevention activities, community risk reduction are number one priority here in the city. But you have public outreach events. If you have time as the chief, go out, even if you can only spend a half hour being there, just to show the firefighters that it's important to you, and show the public that it's important to you as well.
Okay, thank you. So politics, Tim, you mentioned that a little bit earlier. There's both internal and external politics. So you're from a larger, primarily career department. How do you handle the external politics in your organization or in your community?
You can ask any of our members. The brand's got to be present. And the brand doesn't necessarily have to be the fire chief, but LFRA needs to be engaged in all aspects of politics. And I'll share something that I've shared with many audiences before. We look at federal politics and we basically frown upon it. And I've said this before. If your name is not in cursive on the front of the check, you're not in charge. And the reality is the elected officials are in charge, and you've got to engage, create relationships with them. And really what politics is all about is communicating your message, influencing a following through relationships to get to 51%. There's nothing negative about it. But when you look at the federal politics and we buy into all politics is bad, politics is the game. And as elected or fire chiefs, we've got to learn to play that game, play in the arena, and basically tell our story. So if I had any advice to anybody on this webinar, is be a politician and be proud of it. If you're wearing a logo on your chest or a badge on your chest, the reality is you're a politician, and be proud of it. But look at the positive aspects of communications influence and basically winning that election or getting that 51%. That's the name of the game.
I think you're so correct. It was I did my thing like this, thumbs up, because when I was working, the state fire marshal always said, "John, you love politics," and I did love politics, and it was about relationships. It's about getting to know people. So, PJ, anything about politics from your perspective?
Yeah, and I would just say on that, and they are important, and that's probably one of my weak spots, and one of the things that I don't look forward to is dealing with the politics. But like Tim said, it is relationships. You've got to build those. You've got to be present at the meetings. They're not necessarily me, myself, but we can't just show up when we want something either. We can't just walk in the door with our hands out. We've got to be involved in the community side. If they're building a park or, they're putting in new sidewalks or street lights, we could be on those committees. We could help out or at least offer our opinion. But one of the things that I would say again, just don't be the guy that sits on the sideline or guy or girl that sits on the sideline until you want something and then go in with your hand out.
Judy?
Yeah, I'll echo the relationship part. You really need to build those relationships early on, because you are going to be going in, you are going to be asking for money. You're going to be one of how many other department heads in the community that's going to be having their hand out. And well, my old boss used to say, there's one pie and you can divvy out the pieces in only so many ways, but there's still only one pie. And when you build those relationships, one things that does is you walk in the door, you're asking for something, they know you, they know who you are, they know you're not going to stand there and be BSing them for what you need. You're actually going to be going in to ask for something that's needed, not wanted, but needed. And they get to know your personality, and they get to know that if you're really pushing hard, they know you're very passionate about it. And that's one of the things that has really worked for me very well here is building relationship. We have a mayor and 4 city council members, and getting to know them much deeper than just showing up at the meeting or participating on a committee or something like that. One of the things I offer every city council member or new elected official when they come on is a tour of the city from the fire viewpoint. It takes about 2.5 hours, and I take them around the city, show them some of our high risk target areas, and just the span of driving that we have to do, how far the firefighters have to go from their homes to the station and the station to the call, just so they really get to know what we have to deal with in the fire department. But that 2.5 hours that you're there with them one-on-one, you really get to know each other. And that's a good way to get that relationship started. Unfortunately for me, one time the new mayor and I got stuck on a hill, had to get towed out, but it makes for something we talk about now and have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
Well, anything to add to that?
John, if I could just grab onto what Judy said about the pie. Again, just a nugget to share with folks. It's not about getting the biggest piece of the pie. It's about getting the right portion of the pie. Because the other aspect you have to learn is that you're part of a team, a bigger team than just the fire department. I can go in there as the shiny object in the room, and inevitably I can get the biggest piece of the pie. But that's not what it's about. Sometimes you have to give a little bit. You got to have parks. You got to have trash pickup to have a tax base. If you go in there and you just say, I want to grab as much as I can, guess what? Ultimately, your community is going to suffer and your budget's going to suffer. So be a team player. Go for the right portion of the pie as opposed to the biggest piece of the pie.
Well, thank you, Tim. I want to give all of you a heads up. I want to make a couple comments, but I'm going to come back to you and say, what is the one piece of advice that you would give our listeners? So I'll come back to you in just a second, because you all just talked about department heads and a relationship with other department heads. And I have a large career fire chief, our large 272 member career fire department, new fire chief. I'm talking to him. I said, go ask go have a relationship with the other department heads, but go talk to them about what kind of money they might be able to get for you. And so the water department came up with like $50,000 for hazardous materials equipment, including monitoring devices, which they had them, but they were like 10 years old. They were out of date, couldn't be calibrated anymore. So that was that relationship that they had. Without it, they wouldn't even been sitting at the table. As you said, Tim, the pie is still there, 300 pieces, pick a number, and you didn't get one piece of it. So again, that would be the value of the department, value of having relationships with the other department heads. So I'll go, PJ, I'll go to you first on, so, we have new and experienced fire chiefs, but I want to ask you, do you have a direction on what that new fire chief, some advice for that new fire chief?
Patience. I would say, everybody gets excited, and you have your dreams, your desires, and where you want to take the organization. And I did the same. But I would say that you don't necessarily have to waver on where you want to go, but just be patient, be open to change. Your way is not always the best way. Tim said it well earlier about listening to your people. Sometimes even the new guy can have a better idea than you do. So I would say, building your team, being patient, and listening to your people are probably the 3 biggest lessons that I learned when I came into the organization. Even into it 11 years now, those are probably still three of the most important things that I try to live by: is listen to your people and build that team. And like I said, be patient. Things don't in the political world, things don't happen fast. So,
thank you. Tim?
You know, I'll say something very similar to what PJ said is you do have to be patient. I'm an incredibly aggressive person in darn near everything I do. And I've advocated there are two pedals on the floor. There's a brake and there's an accelerator. And, you know, you can't just put the accelerator to the floor and expect to be successful. You got to learn to tap on the brake every once in a while. But probably the bigger nugget for me is nobody expects you to have every answer, and don't act like you do. 5 bugles do not make you the authority on every aspect of the fire service. Listen to your people, know your resources, and create resources. Make sure you've got to use the old term Rolodex, make sure your phone is filled with numbers that you're not afraid to call people. You're not the expert on day one. You may never be the expert. And be free about that. Be willing to admit that, but also be willing to say, I'll get back with you. I've got a resource I can check with. So you're not going to have all the answers, and nobody expects you.
You just made a good comment. Don't be afraid to call somebody. Don't say, well, I know you're busy, so I didn't want to call you. That's a poor excuse.
Yeah.
Text them nowadays, right? You have to text them.
Yeah.
Well, I tell people, you want to get a hold of me, text me and tell me I got to call you. That was the call right at the start of this. I texted Jordan earlier and said, you got time for a call? Well, that was like 2.5 hours later or so. Judy, any advice from you to that fire chief?
Yeah, what the other two said, but also find 1 or 2 people that can be your confidant, because you are going to get frustrated. And like any good leader, you don't vent down, but you need to vent. Otherwise, your head's going to explode at different times. And so find those 1 or 2 people that you can really trust and just talk to them and talk through issues and so on, and knowing that it's not going to go anywhere and that they can give you some good advice back. And then the other thing is create a vision with your team and make sure you communicate that vision so everybody knows the direction that you're heading. If you don't have a good, solid vision, or you have one and you haven't communicated it or built it with your team, people don't know which direction you're going to take them, and so how do they know how to get on board? So create that vision. Make sure you have a confidant, and like the other one said, have your team, but make sure you delegate when you have a team created too. Like Tim said, you aren't going to be able to do it all by yourself.
All right. So there's only one question. So, and I don't think I put this in the slide program, but they asked for the email addresses. So what I will do is I will put their email addresses in the handout section of this program that you can go into the handouts and download it. So we'll make sure that you get all of their email addresses. There are some handouts in the section. I hope you go look at them. If you find them useful, that's great. Just again, some ideas on how to help out that new fire chief on some of the things that they might have to address and that sort of thing. So Paul W is the one that said, thank you on getting the email addresses for that. Anything else you guys want to add as we close out?
No, I think you've got 3 different fire chiefs here with different departments and styles, but I think we can see already that the problems or the issues or the goods and bads are kind of the same. It doesn't really matter if you're signing somebody's paycheck every day or they're coming in as a volunteer. The issues are kind of the same. So don't be scared to reach out. That was one of the things, and Tim was one coming up. But don't be scared to reach out and ask those hard questions, because I mean, just like the 3 of us sitting here, we'll be glad to help anybody. So just know who you can reach out to.
Anybody else want to add something?
No, John, I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to taking anyone's questions that might have further questions that they want to discuss.
The one thing I'll add is you're the chief. Never stop learning. That doesn't mean you stop learning. You need to continue your education. Keep up on your skills. Keep up on the operational pieces, but also those leadership pieces. Managing people. There's so many different things that you can be learning as the chief that you'll find out that'll be really helpful throughout your career.
Well, I want to thank all of you, each one of you, for participating today. I know when I ask people to be on webinars, that many times, especially on a panel, they get nervous. What are you going to ask me? What if I don't know the answer? Well, I think that we've done so many of these now that we know you guys drive the questions of where we're going to go. And that's hopefully today is what got some of that information that they needed, that it wasn't just questions I made up. It was questions that comments that you made. So I want to thank each of you for giving us your time, and the attendees as well. For the attendees, this is recorded. You will get an email in about 24 hours that have the recorded address, and we hope that you will use it. We hope that you will share it. It will be put out on social media, and again, we'll get the handouts in there so that you can, or get the email addresses in the handout section so you can have access to that as well. So with that, we are just about 4 minutes before close, but we're going to stop and thank each and every one of you again for attending, and may God bless all of you. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
John.
Yes.
See you, Tim. See you, Judy.